what's the dream? What is it that you'd like to build towards?
The dream is just certainly at the moment still very much a home-based business for now. I think the shorter term dream is to be able to build a space that I can work alongside colleagues and to be able to continue to help as many businesses as we can through that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Tuesday Chats, where we spend about a half an hour or so discussing all things business and life. In particular, in these conversations, I want to chat with the people who I'm interviewing to ask who they are, what they do, why they do what they do, and where they're headed to. Today, we've got Stewart Eddie joining us from Ask a Food Tech. Stuart and I have known each other for a few years now. Stuart, would you like to introduce yourself to the people who are watching and let them know a little about you and Ask a Food Tech?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Terri. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. So I'm Stewart Eddie. I am Director and Principal Food Technologist at Ask a Food Tech. We're a food technology consulting business based in Toowoomba, but helping food businesses all around Australia. A local lad, so I was born and bred here in Toowoomba, so I've come full circle through an extended career in the food industry where I've worked in 3 different states and had some amazing opportunities around the country. But now pursuing a entrepreneur existence through Ask a Food Tech, where we're helping food manufacturing businesses grow and manage risk.
Awesome. So what does that actually look like on a day-to-day basis? I know that you've said that you get paid to play with food, which I love that idea. But what does that actually look like to you?
But let me paint a little bit of context around that state. I often throw out the line to say that I get paid to play with my food, or do what my mother told me not to do and play with my food and get paid for it. On any given day, I can be working on the kitchen bench, doing benchtop recipe work for a client. Let's say I've got a client who is looking to develop a new beverage and they are looking for a starting point for their recipe. And I can source the ingredients to make sure that the product is safe, tasty, and compliant with food regulations. So that's what one scenario could look like. Another scenario, I was talking to a client this morning about their product and helping them talk through ways in which they could change their product from a refrigerated shelf life beverage to a shelf stable beverage, and what are the factors that are important for making sure that as they transition from refrigerated shelf life to shelf stable, that they take into account the right temperature that they're processing the product at, the hygiene of the ingredients, the hygiene of the process, all of those factors that make up the safety of the food that we eat when it comes to products that are produced outside our home. We're dealing with the context of they could be making 2,000 litres of mix. And so there's quite a lot of time, energy and cost involved in making that. So there's a lot of risk that those companies need to manage in terms of food safety, financial risk of losing that batch, getting their labelling right. There's a lot of factors that a food business needs to take into consideration in getting a product, even just to the shelf, let alone then having to engage their consumer, their target market, and getting people, it takes 6 seconds for someone to choose a product off the shelf in the supermarket. So you've got 6 seconds to draw people's attention to the product. And that's if you can break through the habit that humans have of buying the same thing every week just because they bought the same every week. So there's a lot of psychology involved, food production and food packaging and other things as well. People don't realize there's a lot more that goes on in the background.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like you look at, another person I know who owns a food business is in the process of changing their labels. Am I right in assuming that part of your role is around making sure that things like allergens and all those sorts of things are correctly labeled? Is that part of what you help your clients with? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's 3 core services. So allergen management is certainly one that I'm passionate about. I myself have a severe food allergy, so I'm allergic to most nuts, most tree nuts and peanuts. My son has an allergy to some tree nuts and peanuts as well. We come from totally different biological pathways in terms of how we come about our allergies. So that's an interesting story in itself. If I come back to some of the services that we offer, so we have allergen management, food safety goes hand in hand with allergen management, food labeling, so kind of related, but it's a next step in the process in terms of, you've got to have a food label on a prepackaged food. It's got to look good. So you need a good food photographer, and I happen to know one in case you're looking. Get on your foodly shots. Food labeling, crucial, absolutely crucial to get the food label right first time, because it can be very costly to make a mistake on a food label. And then product development. So the scenario that I outlined earlier around benchtop recipe work, that's the product development. We can help a customer from getting their concept idea down on paper, so physically down on paper, so taking it out of their head, creating a concept on paper, to then taking that theoretical idea through the bench step, physically producing the samples, presenting them back to the client. And then once we've got an approved bench sample, then the challenge is scaling that up. So going from 1 litre on the bench to 1,000 litres, and there's all sorts of things that can go astray in even doing that. Even going to 10 litres, can cause issues. So there's a variety of different services that we can offer food manufacturing businesses depending on what they need.
Of all those different things that you do, what is it that you love the most?
Oh, look, I love being at the bench. Absolutely love it. So, that the notion of being hands-on is really important to me. And so it's one of those things that's where I get great joy from. I love working on basically creating those concepts, bringing products to life. There's nothing better than, walking through the supermarket shelf and being able to identify a product on the shelf and go, well, I had something to do with that. That's one of those amazing experiences, to be part of the team that developed that, because product development is never just one person's effort. There's a whole team of people that are involved in product development, right from the business entrepreneur or the marketing team, right through the design of the packaging production team that actually end up making it. There's usually lots of people involved in the process along the way of getting a product to market. And it's really quite rewarding to see that come to fruition. But equally, having said that, there's no disservice done to the people who are in the quality team as well. The quality aspect is just as important. It's not more crucial than designing the product, because if you don't have a quality product, you won't get that resale, you won't get that repeat purchase. If you don't have a safe product, well, you don't have a product. Quality is absolutely paramount when it comes to getting a product out to market. You've got to have all of those elements.
Yeah. Is it just in terms of the bench work, something that you mentioned before? I kind of work, I don't know. I read on the assumption that if someone's going to work to bring a product to market, that they would have a recipe, like maybe it's grandma's boiled fruitcake recipe from donkeys ago, and they then want your help to take that recipe and turn it into something that is able to be marketed through the supermarket chains or similar, so that you've got that extra shelf life, shelf stability, without losing too much of the original flavor. How often is it that type of thing, like that sort of process where they come to you with a recipe and then they just want you to tweak it for manufacturing, versus, I think I want to do a cake. Can you start from scratch for me?
People will come with a benchmark product in mind. If they can identify a product in the marketplace and say, we want to be like this, but we want to tweak this, we want to tweak that, then that, I always come back to the brief being the center of our universe in terms of product development. If we can have a robust brief that is well defined at the start, then we will actually do a better job of meeting the client's target needs, right? My job is quite creative, but it's still within boundaries. However, technically, from a flavor palette and from a physical parameters point of view, I am doing that. It's just in a different format. I think some of the keys to success there is to be able to listen to the client and really understand what they're trying to get at. And if it doesn't make sense to me, then I tease it out by asking the right questions so that you get a better picture. Once you understand more of that picture, then you can start to piece it together from a technical understanding of, okay, I know what you want to achieve. So let's say, for argument's sake, we have someone who wants to make a ready-to-drink tea product and they want to use a cocoa-based ingredient. I know that's going to be tricky because you need an acidic environment in a ready-to-drink tea to make sure it's safe, but acid and chocolate don't play well together in terms of flavour. So to be able to then marry those two together, you've got to be able to balance the sweetness with whatever sweeteners, so whether that's sugar or other sweeteners, with the chocolate profile wanting to be rich and indulgent. Sometimes the brief is a lot harder than others. If you were making a jam, for example, like you wanted to make a strawberry jam, that's potentially a lot easier to do because the science around jam making is well established and the flavour profile of cooking strawberries, regardless of the variety, is fairly similar. There's a lot more knowns about that outcome than there is about pushing the boundaries with other product combinations. And some combinations just don't work. Sometimes we have to go to the client and say, look, we've given this the best shot. Here is what the outcome is of what you've asked for.
Yeah.
Or it's not possible right now. Because there's a lot of advances in technologies and ingredients and there's a lot of work being done, but sometimes the solution is not available to us right now. And sometimes it's a processing solution. So, can I process it in a way that still makes it safe to eat, but, that changes the flavor outcome?
Yeah. Interesting, isn't it? It's fascinating. So to speak to that final part, that change in the processing, making such a difference in the flavor, I had some steel cut oats the other day and it was versus the steamed and rolled. Please correct me here. I'm sure you get where I'm going. It's the same stuff. It's the same oats. But one's steamed and rolled oats and the other one is steel cut oats. And you would think they were completely different products. Like both very commodity. Rolled oats porridge is that's where I go to with my family because they're big for that for Christmas, for winter time. But this steel cut oats, the nuttiness and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just a difference in the way that it's processed at the factory.
Yeah, I've got a number of examples from my ice cream days. You think of a mango product, a mango ice cream. I happen to have worked for a company that did a really good mango ice cream product, and even just changing the variety. So don't change anything else, but change the mango variety and the outcome is significant. The product can be significantly different. It's quite a crazy notion to think that just doing that would have such a big impact.
Well, there's such a difference in the flavor of like a Bowen mango versus a R2. Because the R2E2s look so big, like they look so amazing because they're such a beautiful color and they're so big, but then they've got no flavor. There's the ones that are much smaller, but so much more intense. Is that just a matter of then having two different recipes that depend on the mango flavor that will end up getting you that same final end result of the consumer having a mango ice cream that tastes what they expect it to taste like?
So obviously I can't vouch for current processes, but if I was to look at that, I mean, there's a lot of skill and a lot of knowledge in choosing the right variety in the first place. This can apply to anything. This can apply to strawberry jam. It can apply to herbs and spices and stuff like that. So I think when you go into one of these projects, you do need to be open-minded about exploring the different parameters that are going to be the ones that make the difference. So if the variety is crucial, then you need to understand what those differences are and you need to be testing those differences. And then once you understand that variety A versus variety B are completely different, to normalize that or to make sure that the experience for the consumer is the same, then what you can do is blend. You can go, okay, what does 50-50 taste like? What does 75-25 taste like? What does 80-20 taste like? Based on experience and potentially through consumer research, you can work out what the tipping point from consumers noticing what the difference is. So There's a lot of work done, companies over time to work out exactly what a product should taste like.
Yeah.
And another example might be a certain well-known biscuit, popular to have with your tea or coffee, might taste differently in Victoria than it does in Queensland. And that's because Queenslanders tend to like a little bit more ginger in their certain type of biscuit. Victorians like a sweeter, less hot style of profile. That is a managed recipe change by the company to have one recipe being distributed to one part of the country and a different recipe distributed to another part of the country. I think now it's probably a process of normalization. What I mean by that is a process of working out the different flavor profiles and testing it in different marketplaces to make sure that they can standardize the recipe but not compromise the taste.
So many moving parts, isn't there? And like so many different levers that you could pull depending on, like you said, market versus shelf life, effectiveness, like a million, so many different things. In amongst all the work that you get to do, what's your least favorite?
Admin.
Man, I tell you what, if I had $1 for every time someone who I interviewed said that.
Look, as with any business, there are parts that drive you nuts. So I've been dealing with 4 hours of IT issues this morning. So, that's the sort of stuff that drags me down and wants me to throw my laptop out the window and all that sort of stuff. So, they're the things that drive me nuts, and probably not a surprise. But that's sort of the thing with a small business. You're often wearing multiple hats and juggling different things. Like day takes a big chunk of time, and while you're doing bench work, you can't effectively be doing admin at the same time. So, you've got to balance that. This is just the challenges that you deal with in your business. And I've had team members over the years and very good team members, I have to say. Really enjoyed working with over the years. Just at the moment, it's myself and I, and some helpers. So, and it's one of those things that you go through.
What's the dream? What is it that you'd like to build towards?
The dream is just certainly, at the moment, still very much a home-based business for now. I think the shorter term dream is to be able to build a space that I can work alongside colleagues and to be able to continue to help as many businesses as we can through that. I think longer term, there's certainly some visions about building beyond just the way we deliver our services now, adding in workshops and adding in other value-adding services so that we can help even more businesses grow and manage risk.
People want to work with you. What does that often look like? If someone this is their first time hearing from you or hearing about you and your services and what you can offer and how you can help their business, what's one of the first things that a lot of people will do with you as a sort of, I guess it's a bit of a testing ground because you need to get to know them and they need to get to know you, I guess.
Yeah, so we offer our clients a complimentary and confidential 30-minute introductory discussion. In that, we delve in as much as you can in that short amount of time to understand what the problem is. Once we understand what the problem is, then we can start to work towards being able to identify a potential pathway for that customer. In some cases, that might be we need to do a bit more work. I might send them my briefing template, my NPD brief template that we mentioned before about taking an idea, fleshing that idea out on paper. Tend to like that process for startups because often they're thinking about just the product, whereas that template will get them to think about where are you going to sell it? What's the customer? Are you going to make this yourself? Like, are you going to set up a food manufacturing facility, or do you want help to find someone who can make it for you? Key decision point right there. Being able to help a customer even make that decision is often groundbreaking for them because they go, oh, I thought that it was just going to be this big and now you've made it sound this big. And so, yeah, but we can help you through that. Like we can help you find the right partner. We can help find the raw materials. And basically by the time we get to that partner to make the finished product, we have the product well defined and, there's some surety in knowing what the product's going to taste like. So we take them through that process, then we'll engage in terms of, might be a non-disclosure agreement, it might be a casual agreement. So it's just, I need you an hour a week or an hour a month or an hour every couple of months. Or it might be, no, let's kick this off as a project and we'll work through different stages of the project from start to finish. So it really depends. It depends on what the customer wants and how in depth they want to engage.
Yep. I guess a lot of that has to come out, like I said, in that discovery conversation to work out where they're headed and how much of that you can help them with. Because you as a solo, I'm assuming that if it's a bigger business coming to you, a lot of would go, oh, well, Stuart can just do this. But when you've got connections into like your graphic design team or a photography team or all those others who can help with all the different stages, like you said, sourcing materials or sourcing ingredients, that becomes hugely helpful, doesn't it? It's getting in a new phase, whether it's new phase from startup or new phase of expansion into an existing business.
And that's what we pride ourselves on, is that we have an extensive network. We've built that network up over 20-something years of being in the food industry. So we're quite good at solving problems for customers. And it might not be just us. It might be that we connect them to another service provider. We've got strong connections into things like even sales, go-to-market strategies, for example. So I've got a key connection who I refer to, people who we've worked together on developing the product. We've got the product to the point where we've got an approved prototype. How do I, as a startup business, take that next step and get that prototype to market?
Yep.
Okay, well, I don't have that expertise. However, I've got a very good connection who I can help connect you with. How do I set the project up for success for the customer in the first place? Making sure that we've got the right strategy around R&D tax incentive. So how have you set up your finances? Are you paying for this out of your own pocket or are you paying for this out of the business's pocket? That's a really crucial step in the very startup phase of working with me on a project, because if you pay out of your own pocket, then those expenses are potentially ineligible in terms of claiming for R&D tax incentive. Helping my customers set up their projects right from the start to, as best we can, succeed. They're the value adding bits and pieces that people don't often see. They're the things that we go that extra mile to be able to help establish those relationships with those contacts so that our customers can have a better product outcome. Food photography, I mentioned that before. It's really good to know some really talented food photographers, because at certain points in the process, in the project, you're going to need to design that packaging, and having brilliant product shots on there, that's going to set you apart from your competitors. Because again, you've got 6 seconds to win the customer. So that's the sort of thing that is going to make the difference. So the connections we can make for our client, hopefully, the better the outcome will be.
Absolutely. And to that point with your photography, I mean, it goes so far beyond just your packaging. It's also around being able to show the person behind the brand, whether it's on your website or your socials or whatever, but having continuity of quality photography and quality imagery. If your first point of contact has been on a supermarket shelf, then a really amazing image on that packaging is going to draw people's attention.
Yeah.
There's so much more. I mean, how many people do you know? Given that I need to wear glasses and often don't take them with me to shopping centres, I'll pick up a package, and if I'm looking for something that is allergen friendly, we'll look at the thing and then go and Google it because I can zoom up on my phone.
Yeah.
But it's just zooming up on. Or if there's a QR code or something on there where I can find out a little bit more. So if you've got, and that obviously then needs to be far more than just the packaging. So that continuity there makes such a difference in the whole trust factor that has to come into purchasing decisions.
Yeah, no doubt. And, it's a really important part of the process that we can help make all of those connections right through the stages of the project.
Yeah, thank you. Look, Stuart, we've actually gone well over time today. Always enjoy having conversations with you. But before we wrap it up, what's the one key thing that you would like people to take away from this conversation as they go forwards thinking about the food industry, food stuff, what's your biggest takeaway that you think people need to remember?
The biggest takeaway.
Apart-
Yeah, look, I think the biggest takeaway is that food is fun. Working in the food industry, everyone needs food. Everyone is going to come across, it's going to need it. We need it to be nutritious. We need it to be delicious. We need it to be safe. And the concept that people need to realize is that when you're dealing with your food in your home kitchen, it's a controlled environment. You know what you're cooking and you are dealing with fresh produce. You can't replicate that experience to an extent in mass market production. So you have to work out what those points are around the safety and the flavor and the processing of the product to make sure it's safe for consumers longer than what you'd have in your home kitchen. At any given point in time, a packaged food that you go to the supermarket and buy conveniently has had a food technologist involved at some point in that process of making that product. It's actually a crucial skill set. Using the services of a food technologist or a company like ours can help you take the next step with your product.
Thank you. It's fascinating, isn't it? Until I met you, I didn't even know what a food technologist was. And to think that someone who has your skill set has been involved in every single thing that's in every single supermarket everywhere. Hello, wake up, Terri. But you don't know what you don't know until you realize you don't know it. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for your time today, Stuart. Hopefully I have been able to tag. Please add your links to any place that we share this so that people can find you.
We do have a deal popping out this afternoon. Shortly this afternoon, our chat, there will be a post going out by social media. In the month of April, we're opening up 5 spots for our label compliance check service. The understanding behind this is that you've got to get your labels right first time. It can have significant consequences if you don't. You could end up with a recall if you don't get your label right. We're going to help 5 customers, food manufacturers who want to do a label compliance check. We've got a deal going. We're going to take $40 off. So normally it's $440. We're going to do it for $400. So the first 5 that reach out to us after the deal goes live, they will get our deal for the month.
Awesome. So yeah, this is going to be shared. Please pop the links in there so people can find you and take advantage of that, because that's a good deal. But holy smokes, the whole importance of making sure that you've got all the bases covered so that you are not liable unnecessarily. So important. So having labeling stuff down to being absolutely Mickey Mouse is so important for a food business.
Yeah.
So people, if you're watching and you have a food business, even if you happen to be watching and this deal is no longer live, get in touch with Stuart, because one way or another, I'm sure he'll be able to help you to get to the next stage of wherever it is that you want your business to be. But thank you for your time, Stuart.